I was getting so frustrated that they weren't letting me go through, and I was getting frustrated going on the floor and like feeling all this anger and like kind of shame.
It was important to Anna, to Fred, to us as filmmakers that her femininity becomes the weapon.
And it's not pretty, it's painful to watch. I mean, I cry every single time I see it.
Hi, I'm Anna Sawai.
Hi, I'm Rachel Kondo, and this is Justin Marks.
Hi there, I'm Fred Toye.
I'm Lauro Chartrand-DelValle.
And I play Toda Mariko.
I'm the second unit director and stunt coordinator.
I'm the director of Shogun.
And we are the co-creators of FX's Shogun.
And this is Variety's Making a Scene.
Like many great moments in James Clavell's book, this scene relies on something not happening. It's about a woman trying to leave the castle, and she doesn't get to leave the castle. And there is such a surprising component of that when it comes to how we as Westerners approach action sequences. You know, the character walks into a scene, they're going to fight with a bunch of people, and they're going to win. Mariko has no intention of winning this fight. She simply wants to make an expression of her will and demonstrate it to everyone who's watching what it is that she's trying to do in order to expose the resolve of her enemies.
This is the first time that she's actually going in and showcasing her position to everyone. There are only a couple people who know about this plan, and she knows that she's not gonna be able to leave. But this is where she has to physically fight and prove that she's being taken hostage. So it's just important to send out that message, proving to people that they are, in fact, not permitted to go outside.
I think the pressure in writing the scene for Callan and I was simply that this is everything Mariko has been saying her entire life, or not saying, but feeling. And this is her moment in which she can do it with a loudspeaker. And this is the moment in which people are watching.
Our Shosha team, which is all of the sort of like background research, they are so critical to the process that if you start from a place of authenticity, that's a great place to grow from. Because otherwise it's like, what do I think would happen in 1600 Japan when she tries to, like, what, I don't know, I think he should do this, I think she should do that, right? But if you go back to authenticity, it's not a fantasy where you can make everything up. It's something real and things that actually happen, historical events. So you start from that place and you build out from there. And then I, as the director, have to use my sort of cinematic cap to say, this is going to be the most dramatic presentation of these factual events. Justin and Rachel had described the scene as Mariko in the center of an eye of the storm. And it allowed a visual image to come to my head when I read it. But there was a unique opportunity in the setting of it because the walls of the castle were claustrophobic and they were incredibly high. It feels like a funnel. It feels like a trap being led into. And it's, to me, it's like having the point of view, the specific point of view of knowing that it's Mariko's journey. I'm taking her through this, and here's the progression. When drawing storyboards, it became very clear that a view from above would show you claustrophobia of the walls. It would show you how surrounded she could possibly be. And if I'm careful to put her in the center of that frame without anything around her, you would feel that sense of total and complete entrapment.
When we start in the rehearsal stage, we had a matted floor. So when the guys fall down, it's not beating them up all day long because we'd be just rehearsing and experimenting with different falls and stuff like that that's going to work for the choreography. But then when we got out there, it was gravel, and they had these kind of sandals on that the costume department did a great job of making them strong and putting soles on the bottom of them so you could have some grip.
Having that stance and not wobbling once like you make a strike, that was like the hardest part. We didn't want it to feel easy, like we don't want it to look easy, and if it is easy for us, it could look that way. So to actually have like real gravel and to fall and actually feel the pain a little bit, I think really helped.
It was by necessity that we filmed this scene on gravel. I wish we could have done it in another way. It did require us to get very creative with the footwear and the visual effects to change the footwear for the safety of our actors. Most of Mariko's scenes, if you were to look at the bottom of her feet in the actual practical footage, you would see the Nike soles of her shoes, because that's what was on underneath the tabi.
道を開けてくださりませ。
Always foremost in our minds was weaponizing politeness and understanding that this is a cultural specificity that we can really use to show her will of steel and her resolve. And we had to render it according to customs, right? And according to politeness. She had to request over and over, I would like to leave now. It is my right to leave now. I'm going to leave now. I think that a lot of the tension was kind of found in that repetition, the cadence and the repetition of that very simple statement.
It's not about showing your power aggressively. It's just, it's so quiet, and I think it's that much powerful because she hasn't lost her temper. She's so poised, and she expects people to respect her. Just having that composure and knowing where she stands is important to like let them know. I remember just getting goosebumps and being worried about the physicality of it, because up till that scene, we only see her fighting in the forest, and it's mostly just running away. She's not actually going against a dozen men. Whereas this scene was her showing her physical skills. It was just mentally preparing myself for that training.
It's on the page, and we go to our rehearsal stage, and I bring in my stunt performers, everybody that I need to rehearse and block out this scene. And then we start to work our way through it step by step and move by move and try and catch all the characteristics of that character on the journey through this story, right? So is she mad? Is she sad? What does her movement dictate by her emotions?
I only had one day of learning the choreography, and we all just came together, and for hours we got together. And I think a week or less than that later, we shot the scene. We shot it without the arrows in the beginning. I was not gonna lose my foot. So they were like, arrow 1, arrow 2. They're screaming it out, and then I'm reacting to it. And then afterwards, they stuck the arrows in, and I was walking in between the arrows.
She wanted to do it all, which she did. She did it all herself. There was no stunt double. And she wanted it to be perfect. And she also wanted to be able to play all of that and still act.
I used to dance, so I pick up choreography really quick. And also we had so much training, months of training. So it wasn't really as intense as you would think, but I think just having so many people involved and making sure that everyone had their space to feel safe, that kind of stuff, you know, you just have to like repeat over and over again to make sure that your body kind of understands what it's going through.
We didn't have live blades. We had wooden swords that were painted, and they looked fabulous. You couldn't tell they weren't steel. The main thing that we always stressed was, you'll see a lot of people, they'll bring a sword over their head and they'll bring it back here to get a full strike. And because we were working with so many people and they were in close proximity, we couldn't have that, because you can stab somebody behind you that's fighting with someone else and take out an eye or worse, right? So we constantly practiced bringing it straight up and cutting from there.
When we started training, we weren't really sure how dynamic the choreography was going to be. So we did do the ones that looked amazing, but in reality would have probably not been done. And then we toned it down to making it look like a real fight. Everything that you see is it feels like with one stroke, like you can actually kill the person or you can get killed. It was really hard because for women, they were using the naginata and it was like a really long sword. And so even the most simple like stroke could be very, very tiring for the arm. Like you have to train yourself in order to actually make it look like you can use it. And also with the sleeves from the kimono, like it would get stuck. So if we have the sword, the blade would be on one end and the other long end would kind of like get into the kimono. And so you would have to be able to, use that properly. So like we couldn't do all the intricate, like amazing action-y things because it was way too complicated for our show. By toning it down, I think that it looks even more like the stakes are even higher.
And one of the biggest things that went along with the safety of it was my no bullshit rule. So I constantly barked at them about this because there's a lot of fight scenes that go on in other shows that are very entertaining, and that's what people are looking at them for, entertainment. So a lot of times it happens in a fight that they have what I call filler, and they're clacking the swords over their head. So they'll block it up here. Why are you doing that? Just let it go by and slice the guy and kill him, because that was what we were about. Efficiency, killing, now, quick. It wasn't to make the fight go on and be entertaining. It was reality-based. You slip and gravel a bit, but they'd rehearsed enough that they would tighten up their stance so they didn't have it too wide and start slipping out. They take a lot of falls and they got beat up over the course of the 2 days that we shot that, because you're doing the same scene over and over from different angles and things like that.
So it's always important to kind of know how much you can, how wide your stance can be. Women back then did not wear underwear. Like they didn't have a proper kind of, like what we wear today. And so they would have to keep their knees closed in order to make sure that everything was safe and not seen. But the thing is with this scene, because she is fighting kind of for her life, we decided that it was okay that she kind of let her knees separate and for her to move a little bit more freely. It's also important to know the weight of the outfit if possible, but it's also hard because you can't really wear layers and layers unless you're actually wearing the exact outfit. So I would just wear a couple of layers to kind of remind myself of the weight. But then on the day, I think it really changes because you're wrapped in like 7 layers of clothing, you have a wooden weapon, and the stunt guys are also like, you have to like come closer because it's not gonna look real. So it all just kind of heightens on the day.
I had to show that she had enough force to move them a little bit because they don't want to get cut, because she will cut them if they get within range. But they could only block and try to stop her. They couldn't stab her with those spears, right? So it was a bit like a wave. It was going back and forth. So you saw some blocks up high where they trapped it and some blocks down low where they trapped it. And they were just continually trying to force her back into the center or keep her from getting to that gate. So that was another big part of the choreography that went hand in hand with that exhaustion part for Mariko.
What we were constantly playing with was how much of below the surface Mariko needs to be revealed in this particular moment and how little. And I think she did an incredible job of calibrating that very specific point of seeing and feeling her determination and yet feeling her humanity at the same time. And if you watch her and you watch her performance, there's an incredible performance inside of those moments, even up to the moment in which she kind of breaks down and stops. It's a really, really dynamic performance that she did. I give her so much kudos and credit for having pulled that off, because it's really, really difficult to play that sort of emotional subtlety within such a precise, rehearsed sword fight.
It was very important to us to subvert what we feel is a very common cliche in action storytelling, that when you have a woman in a violent or action-driven situation like this, there is a tendency, I don't know why, to appropriate qualities that we would otherwise consider masculine in some way, of trying to sort of, equal these playing fields. And it was important to Anna, to Fred, to us as filmmakers, that her femininity becomes the weapon. And to do that, we wanted to see that this was a woman fighting for her life in every human way possible, and that we were not going to manipulate this in the classic Hollywood sense to sort of give everyone superpowers and make this seem like something it wasn't. This is an act of theater and protest that she's doing, and with great dignity she is doing it.
And it's not pretty, it's painful to watch. I mean, I cry every single time I see it. I almost have to shield my eyes because here is this woman who has been supremely dignified this entire story, and even in this moment in which people might see her as compromised, she's not.
It really helped me emotionally as well that I was able to give my physicality 100% because I was getting so frustrated that they weren't letting me go through, and I was getting frustrated going on the floor and like feeling all this anger and like kind of shame because she's never been in a position where she was getting denied, except for denied to kill herself. And I just remember like really tearing up, and you can hear in final edits her being like a little bit because she's holding back her tears, and that was me. I wasn't intentionally doing that, that was just happening.
They're almost like yelps or groans. I'm not really sure how you would describe it, but it was very, very, very specific to Anna's performance. And I feel like it was when she basically physically came to the end of what she could do, and it's that release. And she put everything into everything she did, but this is not only Mariko, this is her father, this is her family, this is the legacy that was cut off with her father's head, you know? Like, a lot of this is all in this last bursts of cries, maybe. It's really hard to define.
It was important that the exhaustion moment of Mariko, at the moment in which she can no longer fight, is not presented as weakness. And it also can't come across as being, I'm too good for this. It has to be a very, very specific kind of an emotion that feels strong, but ultimately she's powerless. She's accepted the fact that this is an impenetrable wall and there's no way of her getting out. So I think that particular moment, yes, could not be ADR'd. It needed to be gotten there because it's a guttural thing. It's a very emotional, it comes out for real. And so, yes, it was critical to get that right.
At this later stage, Anna Sawai as an actress and Mariko as a character, they're blending for me. And so sometimes it's hard to, separate the two from each other. She just wanted to stay exactly as Mariko would be. And I think that speaks to who Mariko is as a character as well. She was so devoted to upholding that degree of focus.
Every time there was a reset, Anna just stayed. She was an island in that storm. Just, you go up to her, everything okay? You're there? She's like, fine. And just standing right there. Every time I watch that scene, I'm so just drawn to as an audience member and moved by.
It's strange because everyone's applauding me for that, but I think that's just how I am. And that may be a Japanese thing where you're feeling a lot, but you feel the need to kind of cover that and not express as much. And so it was just about just being in the moment and staying true to my character.
It's the climax point in which we all think she might be a little bit obsessed with death, right? She's been saying this entire story, in essence, I want to die, I want to die, I want to die. The reason why I think this scene is so important is because I don't think Mariko wants to die. I think she wants to stand for something. I think she wants her life to add up to something and to mean something. And I think that in her world and in her time, the act of seppuku and the act of dying was a way to highlight exactly how you want to live and what you want, what convictions you stand by.
She knew that this was going to happen, that they were not going to let her leave. And by going back and by sunset taking her own life, she was going to make an even more powerful statement. And so this is all kind of part of the plan. Like, it's not a surprise that this is happening. So at a certain point, you will see her kind of come back to herself and forgetting all the tears and all the everything that she was going through emotionally. It's like, now I'm back to my plan. And there's a strength in that.
同じキリシタンとして自害が大罪であることをご存知のあなた様に正式に解釈をお願いいたします。
You also have to remember that this is a woman who sat stone still while an arrow flew right past her face. She has never let anything out. She has never said enough is enough. She has never made that true expression of her will. And there's something so cathartic to seeing her as she is in that moment. And if anything, you know, for Blackthorn in that scene, I think that's what he's seeing there, is this is her true self. This is the secret heart. This is it coming out for everyone to see, which is a very brave and vulnerable choice for any actor to make, and Anna does it with a dignity that I think is becoming of her character.
That's just Japanese culture, to be feeling all these things, but to be repressed. Especially women were not allowed that freedom to express what they were going through. And so in past cinema or TV, we have not seen the complexities of Japanese women in that way. And so I'm so grateful that finally we're able to give this version where they are struggling and they're not obedient because they want to be obedient. They're obedient because they're pressured, and that was society. It was important to just show that part because it's true to who we are.